The battle continues. Ukrainian units continue to hold the northern part of Pokrovsk. According to your information, in this direction and in neighboring areas, what is happening now?
Well, indeed, we are steadfastly holding the northern part of Pokrovsk, precisely as you have very accurately stated. Moreover, we are actively and successfully preventing the enemy from attempting to bypass Pokrovsk through any means. They are still trying to amass such strike groups. We spot them in time, destroy them, and disperse them. Accordingly, on our side, everything possible and impossible is being done. There are some difficulties with supplying logistics to our troops. This is being compensated for in other ways. Additional roads are being found that the enemy doesn't know about, and fortunately, they exist. In addition, operations are being carried out to restore what was lost, specifically in terms of logistics. Overall, the situation is tense, but the tasks set before the armed forces of Ukraine and the defense forces who are taking part in this are being fulfilled 100%, you could even say, with extra effort.
And Serhiy, let's continue then. Yes, let's also take a look at what's happening in the Zaporizhzhia region. Well, look, basically, we're already used to how information propaganda works in the Russian Federation. Here's yet another piece of information about control and capture of Ukrainian settlements. I'll explain right now. The claim that the Russians control Dobropillya near Hulyapol, let me remind you that's in the Zaporizhzhia region, is yet another fake from Moscow. This was stated by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and they explained a few Russian saboteurs managed to get only to the outskirts of the settlement, taking advantage of the weather conditions. The sabotage and reconnaissance group was destroyed, and Dobropillya remains under the control of Ukrainian forces. As I already said, we're used to this, right? And Putin, and some place names that don't even exist on the map. What did he say the other day, Komsomolsk? Or some other settlement? Obviously, he reports to Gerasimov and so on. But from a military perspective, one for the Russian military, when they claim to have taken this or that settlement, which in reality isn't true, what is that? Is it some kind of military tactic too? I don't really understand.
Well, it's one of the ways to influence people's minds. Even the military?
The military too?
Yes. Unfortunately, it affects them too. After all, mainly, well, it must be said that during these years of Putin's rule, the level of education among the population has really dropped. Yes, it has dropped a lot. And that's a fact if you look at it on a broad scale. Even those people who have some kind of education, who are prisoners, who have a university degree, when you start talking to them, they are completely lost in many aspects of life and knowledge that are familiar to us. And I'm not even talking about the rural areas where, starting from school age, people consume large amounts of alcohol and so on. They're not interested in anything that's outside their world. When you talk to them, just ask something simple, like how life is in Russia, how your standard of living compares, say, to Europe or in Ukraine, like with us. How much does a house or a car cost in dollars and so on? And he replies, how much is that in rubles? They don't even have any kind of international comparison. They have no idea how the rest of the world lives at all. There's just their district, their village, their town. That's it, within those boundaries. At best, maybe the district center if they've traveled somewhere, but beyond that, they've never been anywhere in their entire life. You see, even unlike citizens of Ukraine, let alone those from European countries. So, and this information they give them really affects them. They say, we've taken it, that's it, move forward, guys, our people are already there. Besides that, when they send their groups to storm positions, they lie to them again. They tell them that a group from such and such unit has already secured the area, and your task is to get there. And there are several goals being pursued here. The commander reports to his superiors, I've sent the group. They've secured the position. He doesn't care if they all die there. The second aspect is that the commander, as is often the case with them, has already taken their bank cards and the codes to those cards, and this soldier can be listed for a long time as being on a combat mission. His salary will keep coming in, and the commanders withdraw that salary themselves. Do you understand what they're interested in? not evacuating their wounded, and not retrieving the dead. It's basically a conveyor belt for them, a money-making stream. That's how it goes. We've seen this many, many times, and it's confirmed by various sources. This is the method that works here. And then there's the influence. Let's say for those same negotiations, for example, between Putin and his representatives and other countries, to talk about how we're succeeding, how we're pushing forward here. Excuse me, but to achieve and gain these meters at such a cost, at the cost of corpses, what for? For what purpose? In the end, Putin is insane. This needs to be clearly understood. And first and foremost, this needs to be understood by the population of the Russian Federation that is still capable of thinking, and they must do everything to remove him from, let's say, the leadership of this gang that is currently running Russia. You can't call it anything else. They're criminals. And this is an organized group that, hiding behind the Constitution and various laws, manipulating the minds of ordinary people, talks about some vague goals. One moment they demand one thing, then another, then it's denazification, then it's fighting something else, and then it all changes. And to this day, they keep selling it as an idea.
Sergei, let's also talk about the occupiers' resources. About human resources, about technical resources. Well, look, even just simply, according to statistics, just in the past day, our defenders have eliminated 1,140 Russian occupiers. That is, if we talk about human resources, yes. How many losses, right? In total, there are already 1,177,000 soldiers, both wounded and killed. And as for equipment, well, look, for quite a long time, we talked about how the Russians weren't using armored vehicles in their attacks. That went on for a long time. And lately, the reports about damaged equipment of the Russian occupiers. For example, 3 Russian tanks, 3 armored fighting vehicles, and 29 artillery systems. And so on. The Russians have now started to use armored vehicles as much as possible. Speaking of personnel, some time ago, the defenders said that they hadn't seen so many Russian occupiers in Donetsk region probably since 2022. And now there are just swarms of them there. What should we expect in the near future?
Putin is trying to the maximum. He understands that there has to be some kind of way out. Everyone is already prepared for some kind of peace agreement, for some kind of compromise. And he understands this, and he needs to score points to prove that they still can do something. Let me speak for myself. And on behalf of my comrades, we fully understand that the Russian war machine is not weak. As of today, it is still strong, and as you rightly said, they have a lot of this human resource, and they don't spare it at all, not in the slightest. And accordingly, he is pursuing several goals here. To gain dividends for the negotiation process, and secondly, to get rid of those who already have combat experience, who have witnessed all these deaths, and under no circumstances allow them to return to their homes, their cities, their villages, because they understand that if it's not going to be an Afghan syndrome, which was very dangerous back then, we remember well that at that time, Afghan organizations were reinforced by a powerful force, people who stuck together all across the Soviet Union back then. And this will be even worse because if in 10 years of Afghanistan there were 14,000 dead out of a total population of 300 million, we're talking about hundreds of thousands killed in just 4 years. And that's only Russian citizens, citizens of the Russian Federation. And accordingly, this will have a very strong impact on what happens in society. And in society, the following will happen. They have seen, first of all, many of them have seen what it's like to live in normal conditions, to live in villages where there is hot and cold water, where there is internet, where there are roads and paved sidewalks. They don't have any of that, and now they will return. Then they will see their fattened officials who all this time, including during the war, have been making money. Accordingly, the sense of injustice will kick in. Well, go ahead, put things in order at home. Put things in order. We are not going to give you our land, no matter what. No matter how far you have gone there or how much of our territory you have occupied, we will take it back anyway. And in any case, you will have to leave it. Leave our territory. That's for sure. Ukraine was, is, and will be. We will not let anyone take advantage of the situation today, after everything they've done, to go and hand over this territory to them. Just give it away like that, just because Putin wants it, just because he decided so. It's utter nonsense to agree to that, to accept those terms. For what? So that tomorrow he feels like he can do it again. After all, it turned out just like with Crimea. He thought he could get away with it, but at first he did it secretly. There were unmarked signs, terrorists in broad daylight. He saw that no one was reacting, they weren't being killed, they weren't being blocked. So that means he can go further, and that's exactly what happened. But this is a lesson for all of us, for all of humanity. If somewhere at the very beginning such Putins start to appear, then everything must be done to help, let's say, the Democrats of any country who come to power or are trying to come to power, to make sure they succeed. You really have to help your neighbors, otherwise you'll end up suffering yourself later on.
Yes, you mentioned Crimea. Let's talk about Crimea as well, but I'll explain in what context in a moment. I think you know this information. Just tell us how it affects the Russian army in the context of this information. A Russian MiG-29 fighter jet was destroyed by Ukrainian defenders in occupied Crimea. The operation was carried out by special forces on December 4th at the Kacha airfield using a drone. This was reported by the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. According to their information, that night Ukrainian intelligence operatives attacked the Irtysh airfield radar complex near temporarily occupied Simferopol. Sergei, what do you make of this? I'm pretending not to understand. Is this a heavy loss for Russia? For
them, this is a heavy loss. It's a real material loss, a combat loss, and a significant reputational one. And for us, it's a plus. And I'll say this, a fierce war is going on and so on. But all this time, our guys and girls are learning something new. They're improving their skills. Our technology is advancing. We're not just acquiring technology from abroad, we're also creating a lot ourselves. We're improving a lot of what we receive. And this is the result of work, you see, comprehensive work, which should only be announced as is done properly after it has already happened. By no means before, and most importantly, not to reveal how it was done even after it has already happened, so that, let's say, it wouldn't be possible for someone to repeat it in the same way. That's why nothing else awaits them. Crimea, from a military standpoint, you see, even if you look at the years of World War II, it basically brought no benefit to the Red Army. And just as for the Germans, of course, Mitoya, when Crimea was being liberated. There was the famous Soviet 51st Army back then. There's even a street in Simferopol named after this army. Later, during the occupation of Russia and Crimea, they also created the 51st Army based on their, if I'm not mistaken, the 22nd Army Corps. And the same thing, this army is fighting against us now. That is, they are carrying out occupation, provocative, and terrorist actions against Ukraine on our territory. So history is repeating itself. That's why this is more of a political issue. We can drive them out of Crimea very quickly. We will do it when the right conditions are created. Right now, it's about proper and thorough preparation is actively underway to effectively destroy their sophisticated air defense systems, to completely eliminate, let's say, their formidable combat aircraft that could potentially counter our advanced drones and other various types of strategic strikes. And also those aircraft that take off and launch strikes towards Ukraine. That's all there is to it. It's all working together as a system. The set of operations being carried out, being prepared, and that will be carried out is very extensive and large scale. And I think that when the long-awaited word victory is finally heard, the participants in all these efforts will talk about it. We will undoubtedly have numerous books and films concerning this significant event, about the events that transpired, and also the intricate process of its creation.
Sergei, thank you so much for finding the time to join us live today. Serhiy Tsekhotsky, officer?